And before we lose the light, I want to go over the upgrades or whatever. I try to reuse the original wire as much as possible because it was expensive. This is all 2/0 gauge, except for this is probably 1/0 gauge that goes from the positive to this terminal here. This is a shut off, on, off, and then the power continues on 2/0 all the way down to the positive terminal, and then I guess this is your negative terminal on there. That goes to negative on the battery, and then the ground, everything's been copper pasted and redone. The lugs have been redone. So this is like the original wire, but I've used marine heat shrink on here, new lugs, new crimp lugs with a hammer lug, hammer crimper. And this will go on here, and this one will go on here. That's how you want to hook up your terminals on when you have multiple batteries in parallel. Not really much else wiring wise. It's pretty simple. We have an ammeter here. We had a really crummy 10 gauge wire that went from here to there, and now I've got this yellow. I was going to do yellow here, but I just forgot. So it's yellow red for the alternator power. This goes out to the alternator, and all I've done here is used double 10 gauge, which equates to a 7 gauge wire. It's stranded THHN, and it's resistant to oil and things like that, so it's pretty good for this application. And again, used proper crimp lugs here and copper pasted. So yeah, it's in pretty good shape. I did measure the amp draw of just the solenoid. It was 44 amps. I have not measured the amp draw of the starter yet. I have watched a couple of startup how-to videos. That this is the compression release, and this is the throttle. That's idle, and this is full. The other thing that the fella brought up is that I can't remember what. I know this is how you adjust your idle. You take that cap off, and there's a bolt here to adjust the low-end idle. But whatever this box is in here shares oil with the fuel pump, and so I've marked this, and this just had like what I thought was oil in there, maybe a little bit thin and definitely low. So I cleaned it up. It seemed to be under a lot of force, so it had really been tightened down. It didn't look like it had been ever changed by the prior owner. Cleaned up the whole area, cleaned up all the crust, got the plug out, and what was in there is just like water. It's the ambient temperature right now is about 60-65 degrees, and this is like water and fuel mixed together is what it reminds me of. So yeah, and then I don't like the way this is at all. I don't know why they put an extra fuel pump on here, but if we're going to continue with this, then it's definitely going to have to be hung somehow on a metal bracket and not just flop it around here, and replace, of course, this fuel line here, and so on. But the fuel pump does work. I did test the fuel pump, and we'll just keep working on it and get tips from the forum on what to look at and do, and fluids to check, and just get all the basics done, an oil change, everything done on it before we try to fire it up. I figure with the oil, I'll test the oil, make sure it's actually oil in the sump and it's at the right level, and just try to turn it over initially. I did tension the alternator belt. That was loose as all get out. I'll take you over to the alternator. It's a little longer format video than a YouTube short could allow for. That hose looks a little sketch. This is like the alternator. Again, redid this, really secure, copper pasted, tensioned this, got the belt fairly tensioned properly. Yeah, I'm not a diesel mechanic by any means. I'm just just going over the basics with getting any kind of motor run and fixing the obvious electrical nonsense that was on here earlier.